US versus China, the war that would break the world, the unthinkable equilibrium, how a war between America and China would unfold, and why neither side could truly win. What would actually happen if the United States and China went to war, not a proxy conflict, not a trade war, a real, full-scale military confrontation between the two most powerful nations on Earth? Who wins? The answer is far more disturbing than you think. It is the sort of question that defense planners quietly model, politicians publicly avoid, and markets nervously price in. What would happen if the United States and China went to war? Not a skirmish over trade, nor a limited maritime clash, but a full-spectrum confrontation between the world's preeminent military power and its most formidable challenger. The answer, unsatisfying yet sobering, is that such a war would not resemble the swift, decisive campaigns that defined American power in the late 20th century. Nor would it mirror the mass industrial conflicts of the early 20th. Instead, it would be something messier, longer, and far more systemically dangerous, a grinding, multi-domain contest in which victory is elusive, costs are enormous, and the global order itself becomes collateral damage. The arithmetic of power. On paper, the balance begins with a paradox. China possesses scale, America, sophistication. China fields more than 2 million active-duty personnel, supported by vast reserves and paramilitary forces. Its advantage in manpower is not merely numerical but structural, the ability to mobilize, absorb losses, and sustain prolonged conflict on or near its own territory. Geography, in this sense, is China's silent ally. The United States, by contrast, compensates for smaller troop numbers with overwhelming technological superiority and global reach. Its Air Force, numbering over 13,000 aircraft, dwarfs China's in both size and quality. Its Navy, though smaller in total hull count, remains unmatched where it matters. 11 aircraft carriers, each a floating airbase capable of projecting power thousands of miles from home. Spending reinforces this asymmetry. America's defense budget still exceeds China's by a wide margin, underwriting decades of investment in stealth, precision, and networked warfare. If war were a contest of engineering alone, the United States would begin with a clear edge. But war, as history repeatedly demonstrates, is rarely decided by hardware in isolation, strategy as destiny. The deeper divergence lies not in what each side has, but in how each intends to fight. American doctrine remains anchored in power projection. Its arsenal, stealth aircraft such as the F-35, long-range bombers, carrier strike groups, and nuclear submarines, is designed to operate globally, striking adversaries at distance with speed and precision. It excels in disrupting, degrading, and dismantling complex systems. China's strategy is more geographically disciplined and, in some respects, more defensive. Rather than seeking global dominance, it aims to control its immediate periphery, particularly the Western Pacific. Its investments reflect this priority: dense missile networks, anti-access/area denial, A2/AD, systems, and increasingly sophisticated cyber capabilities. In effect, China does not need to defeat the United States everywhere. It merely needs to make intervention in its neighborhood prohibitively costly. This asymmetry creates a strategic tension. America fights best far from home, China fights best close to it. Any conflict would hinge on where, and how, that balance is evaluated. The opening moves. In a plausible scenario, China would seek to seize the initiative. A first wave might consist not of troops crossing borders, but of missiles, malware, and electronic disruption. Precision strikes could target American bases in the Pacific, while cyber attacks attempt to blind command networks and cripple logistics. The objective would be less to destroy outright than to disorient, to delay American response, fragment coordination, and establish a temporary window of regional dominance. The United States, however, is unlikely to remain off balance for long. Its response would emphasize speed and precision, air and naval strikes against missile batteries, command centers, and critical infrastructure. Submarines would hunt silently, long-range bombers would operate from beyond immediate reach. Yet here lies the first constraint. Striking China is different from striking Iraq or Serbia. Its territory is vast, its defenses layered, and its critical assets dispersed and hardened. The idea of a rapid decapitation campaign, so seductive in theory, would quickly encounter the realities of scale and resilience. The impossible invasion. If escalation continued, the question of ground war would arise. But here, both sides confront a near-impossible proposition. For China, projecting large-scale ground forces across the Pacific to threaten the American mainland is logistically implausible. For the United States, invading and occupying China, a country of continental size, defended by millions, and sustained by deep industrial capacity, is equally unrealistic. The result is a strategic impasse. Neither side can easily deliver a decisive blow on land. Instead, the conflict would shift toward indirect methods, blockades, attrition, and systemic disruption, or without front lines, deprived of a clear terrestrial decision, the war would migrate into other domains. At sea, the United States would attempt to exploit its enduring advantage in blue water operations, imposing naval pressure on China's shipping routes. A blockade, formal or informal, could choke energy imports and constrain economic activity over time. In the air, both sides would contest supremacy, though America's qualitative edge would be offset by China's dense air defenses and proximity to home bases. But the most consequential battles would occur in less visible arenas. Cyber warfare would target financial systems, infrastructure, and military networks, blurring the line between civilian and combatant. Space, too, would become a battlefield, as satellites, essential for navigation, communication, and intelligence, are jammed, dazzled, or destroyed. In such a conflict, disruption may matter more than destruction. The side that can better degrade the other's systems while preserving its own would gain a decisive, if temporary, advantage. The economics of catastrophe. Even before a military outcome emerges, the economic consequences would reverberate globally. The United States and China are not merely rivals. They are the twin pillars of the world economy. A war between them would fracture supply chains, destabilize financial markets, and trigger a contraction in global trade. Energy flows would be disrupted, manufacturing networks severed, and consumer economies jolted into crisis. Unlike previous great power wars, this one would unfold in a deeply interconnected system. The damage would not be confined to battlefields, it would cascade through every sector, from semiconductors to shipping to sovereign debt. In this sense, the most enduring legacy of war might not be territorial change, but systemic unraveling, a stalemate by design, and so, the conflict tends, inexorably, toward stalemate. The United States would retain a technological and operational edge, capable of striking, disrupting, and projecting force. China, meanwhile, would leverage scale, geography, and resilience to absorb pressure and deny decisive defeat. Neither side could easily conquer the other. Neither could disengage without cost. The result would be a prolonged, grinding contest in which gains are incremental, losses cumulative, and victory increasingly abstract. History offers analogies: the First World War's attrition, the Cold War's tension, but none fully capture the hybrid nature of such a struggle. The illusion of victory. In the end, the most striking feature of a U.S.-China war is not who would win, but how little winning would mean. Both sides would incur heavy losses, military, economic, and political. Alliances would be strained, institutions weakened, and norms eroded. The global system, already under pressure, could fracture into competing blocs. Even a favorable outcome for one side would come at such cost that it would resemble defeat. This is the quiet logic underpinning deterrence. The balance between America and China is not stable because it is equal, but because it is mutually ruinous. Each side possesses enough strength to deny the other a clean victory, and enough vulnerability to fear the consequences of escalation. A fragile peace. For now, that logic holds. Competition remains intense but bounded, rivalry stops short of war. Yet the margin for error is narrowing. As capabilities grow and distrust deepens, the risk is not that either side seeks war, but that both stumble into it, should that happen, the world would discover that the defining conflict of the 21st century has no satisfying conclusion, only degrees of loss, and in that sense, the most accurate answer to the original question is also the most unsettling. A war between the United States and China would not be won. It would simply be endured. In the end, the question isn't who wins. It's, how much is left. The United States may retain military superiority, China may remain unconquerable. But both emerge weaker, the world emerges fractured, and victory looks a lot like defeat, because in a war like this, there are no winners, only survivors,